On this episode of Cosmic Sponge, we learn about a newly discovered celestial phenomenon with an unusual yet awesome name, possibly what could be the oldest X-file on record, and that a Bigfoot could be vacationing in Myrtle Beach. For our main topic, we discuss the possibility of an undiscovered planet on the edge of our solar system that may just spell the end of life as we know it, Planet X. Stick around. We have a good one for you. Welcome to Cosmic Sponge, the podcast where we discuss weird wonders in the world. I'm Stephen Hawk.
And I'm Jimmy Cook.
Tonight, we are going to be talking about Planet X. The undiscovered planet that may be beyond the orbit of Uranus and Neptune.
Minus?
Jim, you know what? I knew you were going to laugh at that. I'm trying to make a good podcast here. And there you go.
I'm sorry.
You know, it's
sorry.
like first sentence, man.
I can't help it.
All right.
Okay.
Let me start this over. So anyway, Planet X may be this unknown planet that's outside the orbit of Jimmy's anus. And, and it has scientists baffled as to what it can be, because apparently there's some gravitational tendencies.
It's a brown dwarf. Okay. Okay. No. Let's get back on track.
I'm trying to decide if we need to just start the whole thing over.
We should just start the whole thing over.
All right. Maybe I can add it through.
Okay.
But we're going to be looking into this planet much more seriously right after I check in with Jimmy and ask him, Jimmy, what you been up to this week?
Just, it's been a little bit since we got our last episode out.
It's last week?
It's last week, but, we haven't been as on top of things as we could have been just because it's the summer and we're busy.
It's the summer.
We got stuff going on, man.
We got summer stuff to do.
Summer stuff. I still got to mow my lawn. It's terrible out there. A lot of rain. Anyway, I have had time while it's raining and I can't do my lawn to sit around and look and see what's going on in the world of UFOs, cryptids, and those other kind of things, and even some cool science stories. One thing I found was that James Fox, who did the Phenomenon movie, which Steve and I both really enjoyed, is coming out with a new documentary, and he's been talking to some people at the highest levels, and he's teasing that he has some information, which I presume is in the form of a video format, which he may be including in this documentary. The documentary's been done, but he just received this footage, so he might be slipping that in somewhere in there, and we might actually get to see some new exciting information. At least he's teasing it that way, and whether it's to get bigger sales, which certainly that's part of it, or whether he really has something that's going to be earth-shattering. Right. We'll just have to wait and see.
Earth-shattering.
Earth-shattering. A little.
The aliens are guiding an asteroid toward the Earth.
Right.
That's what's earth-shattering.
A little tease there. Scientists discovered this aurora in 2017. They've come to find out that it's actually not an aurora. It's some kind of new celestial phenomena. And this is my favorite part of this story. They have named it Steve.
Hell yeah?
Yep.
They named it Steve.
Yeah. This year, scientists found out that Steve, the aurora, isn't actually an aurora at all. Even cooler, it's an entirely new type of celestial phenomena we hadn't seen before, and we're still learning more about. The new astronomical phenomenon looks like a ribbon of flickering light and has been spotted in the high latitudes of the northern hemisphere. They have a picture of it here, and I'll see if I can put this up on Facebook. It's really beautiful looking. I don't know that Steve's the name I would have went with, but it looks pretty cool.
Well, thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, post it up there. I want to see what it looks like.
Let's go up Facebook. Okay, it's up there. It's at the very end of the article I just posted.
All right.
It's the Science Alert. And there's a lot of cool things in that Science Alert post as well, like improvements to the antibacterials that we use in health, cures for some cancers out of Australia.
Oh, so that's Steve.
That's Steve. Yeah, and what we're looking at here, folks, is a night sky with a really prolific starry background. You can see part of the Milky Way there. Then there is this streak of slightly curved purplish white that is really prominent that goes right up through the middle of this starscape.
Yeah. Well, what about the green horizon over there? Is that part of it too?
It might be, yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and it's your namesake there.
So they seriously named it Steve?
They named it Steve. I want to find the scientist who did that and shake his hand. Because, you always get these wacky names like XB117AA4 and stuff.
Or named after
some Greek god Dionysus or something like that. Cygnus, whatever.
Or some Latin.
Sirius.
Thing.
Yeah. So that was all really pretty cool. But these are all just little stories. My main story actually comes out of UK. The UK's oldest UFO sighting has been revealed for the first ever X-File. It's been hidden for over 280 years. First sighted by physician Cromwell Mortimer.
Come on.
The secretary of the Royal Society of Secrety Stuff spotted a ball of light in the sky as he left work. He was walking home to Westminster, central London, in December of 1742 and recorded what he witnessed in a scientific UFO report. The physician jotted down a sketch of the mysterious object and published it in the Philosophical Translations, volume XLIII in 1746. That's You remember your Roman numerals? What is that? That's like 43. XL I don't know. I haven't done
what
that.
What is it? XXXIII?
XLIII. That's 43, right?
No, 20. Because I remember when they did Super Bowl 30, they did XXX. Do you remember that? When it should actually been, XL, I think, because when you go to 20, I think you use the symbol L.
Okay, well, let's not stay on this any longer because now we're talking about the Super Bowl. So, in Super Bowl XLIII in 1746, it was the Aliens versus the Philosophic Transactions by one Cromwell Mortimer.
You know what? It was probably a Steve.
Probably a Steve. Anyway, Mortimer writes in his notes, as I was returning home, actually it would be some, as I was returning home from the Royal Society to Westminster on Thursday, December 16th, 1742, the year of our Lord, at 2040, because I use big numbers, being about the middle of the parade in St. James Park, I saw a light arise from behind the trees and the houses in the south by West Point, which I took at first to be a large skyrocket. Did he really say skyrocket?
They had skyrockets.
In the night?
They also had
in flight?
Afternoon Delight.
That's a special kind of parade. But when it had arisen to the height of about 20 degrees, it took a motion nearly parallel to the horizon, but waved in this manner and that, and went on to the north by east, over there by those there houses. As Mr. Mortimer watched the object, he believed its path had brought it directly over the Bloomsbury district of London, passing over Queen Square and making its way in the direction of the canal adjacent to it. And they have pictures and stuff of it. Well, not photos, pictures that are hand-drawn because they didn't have cameras back in the 1700s. Yeah. But
they had, you're saying they have drawings.
They had drawings of drawings of the thing that they lost sight of over the Haymarket.
Would you like to see my drawing?
Yeah, so this is the first ever X-File out of the UK. This is awesome.
Well, it's a XLIII file.
Yeah, that's right. It's an XLIII file. And they concluded it was probably ball lightning.
Sure it wasn't a weather balloon.
Maybe a weather balloon that was struck by ball lightning. But
it was probably one of the French balloonists, going across the channel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it could have been, right? Was that around the 1700s sometime? See.
All right, man. Well, that's pretty neat. 18th century UFO story.
Yeah.
I had some good stories. We are always talking about how some weeks are just slow I mean, it's like you try to find a cool story, and there's just no UFO or Bigfoot or science stories you want to cover. And then this week was pretty good. I had a bunch of stuff, and I posted all of mine on here. One of them I'm just going to briefly mention is, for the first time, NASA detected CO2 in an exoplanet. That's exciting news, because as we start getting better at scanning these exoplanets, then who knows, we may find the signs of life. To be able to detect these gases and these enormous distances between us and these stars and these extrasolar systems. If you want to check that out, look at it on Facebook. There was another one. Teen spots UFO after seeing a flashing object with a black orb while camping in the UK. And I have to admit, when I first looked at this story's headline, I thought that it said, teen spots UFO after flashing object. And so it kind of caught my attention. You know, like, woo! You know, teen flipped the shirt up or something. I don't know. Let's move on. So that story also is posted. The story I want to talk about, though, is there have been 2 Bigfoot sightings reported in South Carolina in 2022. According to the report, the first sighting happened during the day along Lighthouse Road exit. The Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization classified this incident as a Class A sighting. And Class A, in case you're wondering, means in circumstances where misinterpretation or misidentification of other animals can be ruled out with greater confidence. That's a Class A sighting. So you're like, hey, it's Bigfoot. He's strolling out there in a field by himself. I know it's not a bear. I know it's not a raccoon or whatever.
A raccoon, you would. Hey, that's one big raccoon.
There's some big raccoons around here. Now, there was another report in August where there were 3 witnesses. The creature was walking upright, taking strides quickly to our left, and disappeared into the bush on the left side of the road directly in front of us. We only witnessed the lower torso of the creature as its head and shoulders were hidden behind a pine tree and a palmetto stump on the left side of the road. The 3 witnesses reported their alleged encounter with Bigfoot to the Hunting Island State Park official.
So did it have a bandit mask on and tiny little hands?
No.
So not a raccoon.
It obviously was not a raccoon, right? That's what made it a Class A sighting. They were able to verify no little hands and no bandit masks. And also, the same state forester that these individuals reported this Bigfoot sighting to admitted that he had heard loud knocking sounds. You know, the wood knocks that you get?
Oh, yeah.
That are often associated with Bigfoot sightings. He said it didn't sound mechanical, but like wood on wood. Each time I heard one, I would then hear another one as if in response.
Wow.
He recalled this encounter as he reported that he was walking along the tree line toward the west, along the south edge of a power line near Daimler Boulevard, and noticed an area where a large animal had been bedded down and a very intense smell.
Did they get any DNA or samples or anything?
Doesn't say. Bigfoot reports from August 7th and July 5th are among dozens made in South Carolina since 1997, according to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. In Lee County, they have 8 reports, this being the area with the highest number of sightings in the state. So anyway, yeah, pretty neat.
Huh.
By the way, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization was founded in 1995. It's a group of volunteers who investigate tips and Bigfoot sighting reports in order to decide if it's credible or not. And you can check them out on their website if you like and find out more.
Wonder if they have like a Bigfoot vacuum cleaner so that when you find like indentions like that, nest and that kind of thing, you can go out with a big old vacuum cleaner and just suck everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can filter it out when you get back to the lab and see what kind of DNA you might have in there. We should market those.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, we should make Bigfoot vacs.
Yeah, I mean, you should be a member of this Bigfoot Field Organization.
I definitely
should
be.
With some ideas like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I would have definitely, I would have dug up the ground around there and just taken it all back to the laboratory like they do in those shows. Like, you ever see that show Bones, where that woman plays like the anthropologist, and she, like, every time some skeleton pops up, she's like, take it all back to the lab. It'd be like they have to take a pond and like the trees and everything around it back to the lab. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Get to the bottom of the whole, Bigfoot thing. It's funny you mentioned that. I ran across an article, posted this on Facebook a few weeks ago. And listeners, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but we post a lot of stories like this and some science stories on there. Let's see if I can find it. There's the one about the Martian sunning itself on the rock. That was a good story. Enjoy. Here we go. This story was published July 24th. Or actually, when I posted it was July 24th. This is about Bigfoot samples. This scientist, Todd Disentel of New York University, says that there are very few reputable scientists who have ever been willing to go publicly on record as far as the Bigfoot or Yeti. But he did a study, said this study did it right, reducing contamination and following all the sample protocols. In 2012, researchers asked for hair samples to be sent to them and everything, and they received 57 hairs from Bigfoot enthusiasts and museums around the world, including samples from Washington, Texas, Oregon, Russia, and India. Some were as old as 50 years old, some of the samples. They discovered that some of the hairs immediately turned out to be like plant or glass fibers, things like that. Mm-hmm. But then the remaining 37 samples, they isolated and cleaned them. 7 of those samples didn't yield enough DNA for identification. Of the 30 that were sequenced, all matched the exact 12S RNA sequences for a known species.
Was it a redhead?
It turned out 10 hair belonged to various bear species, 4 were from horses, 4 were from wolves or dogs, and 1 was a perfect match for a human hair. And some of the others were cows, raccoons, deer, and a porcupine.
Porcupine.
2 samples from India and Bhutan matched polar bear, a surprising find. They're still working to try and figure out if this may be a Himalayan bear. Maybe it was a hybrid Himalayan and polar bear.
Oh, so, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was a pretty thorough investigation. And so just the fact that you brought up the, gathering DNA and all that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe someday they'll come up with something. But according to that lab and the samples, they had started with 57 samples. And of the ones they were able to investigate, all of them turned out to be something well known in the world.
That's disappointing.
Not an unknown primate in North America or elsewhere.
Disappointing.
It is. It always is.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Keep holding out hope.
Yeah. Well, I guess, Jimmy, you got anything else you want to cover on the news segment?
Nope. I think we're, a little housekeeping here. So, George, who's one of our longtime listeners and a personal friend, I was having lunch with him, and he brought up this meteor impact that happened in the Gulf of Mexico, essentially, that killed off the dinosaurs. Yeah.
Chicxulub.
That's it. So he said that he had seen this article a couple of days before, and he sent it along to me, where they identified a second meteor impact from that same period of time. They're now wondering whether or not there were actually 2 impacts that happened. And the second impact happened off of Guinea, off the coast of Africa. So the coast of Guinea, West Africa, 400 kilometers off the coast and about 300 meters below the seabed. They identified an impact crater that dates back to about the same time. And they're thinking now that there was these 2 impacts, and it's a little bit under a kilometer in diameter, they think.
I had seen an article right after we recorded our episode about, and it may be the same article that George sent us. That's sort of been out for a little while. I have heard before where the 2 of the scientists that really pursued the Chicxulub crater, that geological layer and all this, one thing inside that geological layer, in the addition to iridium that we talked about in our last episode, are spheroids. And there are these tiny metal spheres. And what happens is when an asteroid hits, or a large meteor, it throws all this matter into the atmosphere, and then these metallic spheres rain back down on the Earth. So that it creates these little spheroids. And that's a sign of a large meteor impact. A number of years ago, some researchers started finding spheroids in geological levels very close to the Chicxulub event. There may have been another impact pretty close, at least geologically speaking, to the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. That there may have been 2 impacts I had heard that. I haven't read that particular article yet, though, but I did see it in my feed. I just haven't read it. I thought about posting it, but why don't you go ahead and post that article on Facebook and let our listeners check it out. Thank you, George, for sending us some information.
Definitely. Good stuff, man.
You said you had something else?
Oh, no, that was it. I think that's the only housekeeping thing I got.
Well, we did have some listener comments. Listeners saying, hey, guys, what's going on, man? Why aren't you guys putting out an episode every week?
Oh, yeah, I think we covered that.
It.
It's summer. We got stuff going on.
Right. And, I apologize. It's mostly me, less Jimmy. Yeah, I kind of like being an outdoorsy guy in the summers. The weather's already cooling off in my part of the world, and my brain starts shifting to those indoor activities that always occupy most of our time in the fall, winter, and early spring. So yeah, we'll get back on schedule very soon.
Jam time coming up to some music playing.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure when this episode will come out in relation to this, but Jimmy and I plan to be at the Mothman Festival in September. So the Mothman Festival takes place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. We are not going to have a booth or anything like that. We're going to kind of get in there, scope out the landscape, as it were, and hopefully we will meet other people that are interested in the kinds of topics that we are. Hopefully we'll make some contacts and, maybe have some guests on the show. We haven't really decided exactly what we're going to do yet. We probably won't decide that until like the day before we go.
Yeah.
Or maybe the day of. We don't have any big plans other than we're just going to show up. Listeners, if you're in the area, just look for a couple of dorks walking around, handing out Cosmic Sponge cards, and that's us.
Yes, indeed.
So come up and say hello. And would love to meet some of you people. And hopefully we'll have another episode out before the Mothman comes up. But just in case we don't.
We will.
We hope to see you at the Mothman Festival.
If nothing else, we'll do an announcement.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I guess we should move on to tonight's main topic. Before we do, I'd like to remind everyone to please rate and review the podcast. Now, please, this helps other people find the show. It'll help bump us up in the ratings on things like Apple iTunes and Spotify. Just help us grow our audience, which our audience has been growing. It's been steadily growing exponentially since we started this thing. So thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Check out Instagram and Facebook. A lot of the news stories we talk about, we post on Facebook. While you're at it, check out our webpage. It's cosmicsponge.com. We have a web store. We have ways to support the show. There's a little coffee cup icon in the upper right-hand corner of the page. You can click on that, and that's called Buy Me a Coffee for a one-time donation. And the link right beside that is for Patreon. If you click on that, there's 3 very modest levels. And once you do, you gain access to another show we do exclusively for our Patreon supporters called Weird Wonders. Our contact information is firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. Okay, so on with the show. We are looking into the mysterious planet X, the possibility that there is a planet beyond the orbit of Neptune and out beyond Pluto. So, Jimmy?
Yeah.
I know you've done a little legwork on this one. How about getting us started on Planet X?
Okay, well, let's jump into it. Nancy listened intently to the aliens through the chip in her head. The Zetas, that's what she called these mysterious aliens yammering inside her noggin, had selected her as the herald for the coming apocalypse. The mission of warning the masses may have overwhelmed the average Wisconsin native, but not Nancy. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. First, by launching a website titled Zeta Talk in 1995, the same year that the Hale-Bopp comet appeared in the heavens. The comet, according to Nancy and the Zetas, wasn't real. It was a distraction for a much larger threat from the edges of our solar system. A planetary object, which she named Planet X, would soon arrive, plummeting toward the inner solar system, forcing the Earth's rotation to stop, then switching the poles, before the Earth would once more spin up, leaving behind mass destruction and likely the extinction of the human race. This would occur in 2003, according to the calculations provided by the math-challenged Zetas. Spoiler alert, it didn't happen. Yep, 2003 came and went, but not before Nancy's efforts would garner her some real estate within prestigious papers like the New York Times. Help from one of her newsletter readers would lead to a book titled Blindsided, Planet X Passes in 2003. She even had a global reach, as her works riled up a Japanese cult known as Panawave. This industrious organization of wacky characters held meetings where they would line roads and rivers with white cloth to protect themselves from electromagnetic attacks initiated by the approach of the 12th planet. A week prior to the impending arrival of Planet X, KROQ-FM out of Los Angeles had Nancy on as they were seeking some helpful advice on how to manage your affairs as the apocalypse approached. Her most memorable recommendation, as an animal lover, was to euthanize your pets, while also noting, quote, "You know, a dog makes a good meal." When asked if she had put down her own pets, she said she had and that they were in a better place. Probably her tummy. And so, 2003 came and went without incident, forcing Nancy to change her story and the timeline for the end of the world. Her 2003 claim was made to fool the establishment, you see, as well as to get a free meal and a doggy bag. The date was moved to December 2012, coinciding with the Mayan calendar's end-of-time prophecy. This too came and went with little more than a sigh and a disaster movie with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 47%. However, the belief in a doomsday planet lurking just out of sight remained a lingering scenario in the minds of conspiracy theorists, pseudoscientists, and, believe it or not, legitimate scientists, surrounded by shiny degrees and fancy math equations scribbled on crumpled, Cheeto-stained paper. Tonight we're going to investigate how an alien contactee, a researcher into the ancient language of the Sumerians, and astronomers who were unable to explain orbital anomalies all ended up pointing to a hidden planet on the edge of our solar system, and then we'll discuss the probability of humanity turning into dog-eating maniacs just before the end of the world. Steve?
There is some serious scientific studies into another planet. Now, currently, as most of you are probably aware, our solar system consists of 8 planets. When I grew up, we had 9 planets.
We still have 9 planets.
Jimmy still thinks we have 9 planets.
I know we have 9 planets.
Not counting Planet X. And see, Planet X was so cool back in those days because X also, the Roman numeral, X, 10, get it? But see, now it's just totally messed that up.
Totally.
Most of the major planets have been discovered. I think Neptune, the last planet, large planet in our solar system, was discovered in 1846. But there were some strange gravitational movements whenever they would do the math. It didn't quite add up, right? So they had been suspected for quite a long time that there was an object beyond Neptune. And in 1930, it was discovered and officially named as 9th planet. But in 1978, Pluto was determined to be too low in mass to have caused these perturbations.
I don't know what that word means.
Perturbed.
Oh.
The orbits wobbled in a certain way or didn't move exactly right. And in 1978, it was determined that Pluto just did not have enough mass to affect the planet Neptune in that way. So the possibility of a 10th planet, meaning another planet out there somewhere, was proposed. In the 1990s, it was discovered that Neptune was less massive than astronomers had thought, which explained some of the apparent discrepancies in Uranus's orbit. At this point, the search for an additional planet was largely abandoned. So what happened to Pluto? In 2006, the International Astronomical Union, because there had already been some debate about Pluto. It's a very small object in space. Its moon, or a second object, Charon, was also discovered. And Charon almost has the same mass as Pluto. So it's kind of like, well, is that a planet? Should that be a planet? And some other objects have been discovered in that same orbital plane. And then at the same time, some objects were being discovered way out in the solar system near the Kuiper belt that had large mass. And then, of course, you have Ceres in the asteroid belt, which is a rounded planetoid-type object. It looks like a planet. It doesn't look like a rocky asteroid. I mean, it's round. It has enough mass. So it's kind of like, is that a planet? What about these objects we're finding in the Kuiper belt? Are we going to call these planets? Because they're definitely not large and massive like the gas giants. They're not even as large as Mars, or Mercury for that matter. These are smaller objects. So they decided to define what a planet is and decided to call Pluto a dwarf planet. What the definition of a planet is, which was adopted, it must have these three things. This was adopted in 2006. It must orbit a star. In our solar system, that would be the sun. It has to be big enough to have gravity to force it into a spherical shape. All right. Well, Pluto is in a spherical shape, but so are some other objects like Ceres. And it must be big enough that its gravity cleared away any other objects of a similar size near its orbit. And in which case Pluto didn't, right? There's Charon. It's right there beside it. This debate's still going on. And of course, whenever it was voted on at the time, there were some astronomers that wanted to just sort of make Pluto an honorary planet. But then in the end, all the scientists said, okay, we're not going to call Pluto a planet anymore. It's a dwarf planet. Planets have to match these definitions that we just came up with. At the time, one of the faces of this debate was Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I mean, he literally received death threats because astronomers wanted to demote poor old Pluto to just a dwarf planet and say from that point on that we only have 8 planets.
So on that note, in West Virginia, there is an observatory that's incredibly famous. It's the Green Bank Observatory. It's a radio telescope out in this no man's land where they pretty much tap down any of the signals so that they get no interference when they're doing their observations with the observatory. When you go on site, because you can go on site and tour the facilities, and they still have some educational work being done there. I don't know if they're still doing research there or not, or if it's just an outreach sort of program for the observatory or not, but there's still stuff going on there. But as you go down through there, they have spaced a certain distance from the point at which you enter the facility. You drive down towards the large radio telescope. They have these posts, and on each post is a flag, and on the flag is a representation of a planet. And we went down after Pluto got demoted, and they flew that flag at half staff. Which I thought was awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, they have 2 other planets, well, 2 other non-planets now that sort of led to this demise of Pluto as a planet. The 2 that I have here in my notes are Sedna and Iris. Trans-Neptunian objects is what they're calling them, and discovered by Mike Brown in 2003 and 2005, respectively. And Mike is really prevalent in this whole topics around planetary bodies on the outer edges of our solar system. And some of his subsequent work noted that while, yes, Neptune was lighter in mass, and that was something we discovered when Voyager did a flyby, that accounted for the anomalies they saw there. There are anomalies they're seeing in these trans-Neptunian objects in the Kuiper Belt, where they are behaving in a way which demands that there has to be some large planetary-like body, a little larger than Neptune is what they're guessing, in order to describe why these smaller Pluto-sized objects are behaving the way they're behaving. So there's a search going on right now for such a planet. So it's very likely that there is at least something about the size of Neptune out there in the darkness that we can't see.
They have determined that this planet should have 6 times the mass of Earth, 6.2 times the mass of our planet. Now, we're not a large planet compared to, obviously, the gas giants like Saturn or Neptune. But still, much more mass than, let's say, Pluto or any of these other dwarf planets that we're talking about out there. So this actually should be a pretty sizable object. It should be visible. Despite a lot of observation in the outer solar system has yet to confirm that there is another planet, a planet X out there.
Yeah, see, and this blows me away because we can see planets that are literally thousands of light years away, millions of light years away.
Now we can.
Now
right?
we can, yeah. So
well, there's methods for it. But some of the extrasolar methods, though, we don't actually see these planets. Exoplanets are discovered typically by the amount of light coming off a star somewhere. Let's say they pick Sirius, and then they observe Sirius for a couple of years. And at some point, they'll notice that it dims slightly. And based on the amount of light that's reduced, they can deduct from that how large a planet would be passing in front of that sun and for how long.
Oh, yeah, for very distant things. But, I mean, for, like, within our solar system, we should be able to see this planet, right?
Right, within our solar system.
Yeah, so I'm just astounded that we can't see this planet that's out there at the edge of the solar system because, you know, we can see things with Hubble and the James Webb telescope that's way, way, way out there. And,
right,
you know,
right.
I don't know how math works.
But also, I mean, we're seeing some of these objects in the Kuiper Belt. And by the way, listeners, the Kuiper Belt is a mass of objects at the very edge of our solar system. It's very far out there, the very limits of the heliosphere, as they call it, the influence of our sun. So these Kuiper Belt objects, that's where they're discovering these dwarf planets that are in very similar mass to Pluto. But these objects are relatively small compared to what this planet X is, which would actually be a planet. Because of its mass, right? And assuming it orbits the sun. And then that makes me wonder, too, what do they call an object that would, I guess it has to have an orbit to even be considered a planet. So it would just be an object, I guess, right? I mean, what would be an object like, what was that long object, extrasolar object that came through the solar system a couple of years ago? What was that called?
Halley's Comet?
Uma.
Oh, the interstellar object.
I mean, what if it was a planet-type object? Would that just be something else? Extrasolar object, I guess. Rogue planet? Would it be a rogue planet?
A rogue planet. I would say it's a rogue planet. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't fit in the definition of planet. Planet, apparently, according to astronomers, has to have an orbit around the sun.
A planetary-sized rogue object.
Okay. There you go. That's pretty good.
We'll call it Mickey.
I like it.
If Pluto,
hey, man,
Pluto can't be a planet, let's call it Mickey.
I say we call it a Jimmy. You know what? There's some, Aurora named after Steve, so let's just call it a Jimmy.
Earth got punched in the face with a Jimmy. So,
I think it's a Jimmy.
Big old Jimmy. So talking about these large elliptical orbits. So we have like Halley's Comet, and that comes through, every 70 years?
Every 76 years?
76 years, that sounds right. We're going to go with that. There is this story that comes out of Sumerian tablets as transcribed by this self-taught German businessman named Zechariah Sitchin, who since has passed away. But he wrote a book called The 12th Planet, based on his research into these Sumerian tablets, which claims that there is a 12th planet on the edges of our solar system that cycles through about every 3,600 years and comes to the inner solar system, and to some degree may or may not cause havoc, depending on its influence as it comes through. But on this 12th planet is a race of beings which essentially the Nephilim come from. This super race comes to our planet. I don't want to get into the details of that. I think Zechariah demands it's his own episode.
Man. Sounds pretty cool.
It does, but it's a lot of material because he wrote a billion books. He has written quite a few books, and he lays out a very detailed account, according to his translations of the Sumerian tablets, about the origins of mankind. Spoiler alert, we were slaves. All of us.
Really?
Slaves to the Nephilim. Slaves to the Nephilim. Slaves to this other super race called the Canucks or something. I don't know. They were part Canadian. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway.
Anuakai or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
That's
I've heard about that.
Yeah, those weren't Canadian. But either way, it was about some aliens, eh?
What I'm wondering, though, if this big planet comes in, what are they, like, got little spaceships and they come over and, like, hang out on Earth? And I mean, how long is it in the neighborhood? I'm assuming they got to fly back over to their planet and head back, but why don't some of them just, stay, like build a summer home here or something? I mean,
I confess I haven't read Zechariah's books. It's on my list, my to-do list somewhere around, cleaning the bathroom and building a porch. So at some time I'll get around to it. But yeah, I think he explains all of that. There was a rebellion. There was a revolution. They decided to leave, but they promised they're coming back.
Did you ever see that old show, Space 1999?
Oh, yeah. We were actually watching it here recently. We tried to watch it. It was much worse than we remembered.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first got Hulu, I think it was, a few years ago. Space 1999 was on there, and I remembered that show from when I'm around 12 years old or something, maybe a little older actually. But whenever it came out, I was a kid. And that was like my favorite show in the world. I thought that was just the coolest show. And then I watched it as an adult, and I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, it's like the stories didn't actually seem to work most of the time. Did you notice that?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not talking about the bad. I thought the special effects were okay. I was kind of into it, and I loved models and all that stuff when I was a kid, and I still like that kind of stuff. And I mean, I'm fine with the, okay, special effects and all that was fine. But I mean, really, I was having trouble, like, even following the plots of the stories.
Yeah, and it's sort of like Dark Shadows for me, because it cracked me up only in this sense. It's only like Dark Shadows in this sense, is that there were several episodes where you would see crew members in the shots.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah, I love it.
I think it's awesome. But
it tickles me every time I see it.
Yeah. See, the boom mic was always, I mean, it was every episode. If it wasn't the boom mic, it was the shadow of the boom mic. No, I mean, that was daytime TV. They didn't really.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
But, and they're on a tight schedule, right? They got to produce an episode every day.
Yeah.
No, Space 1999. But anyway, I digress a little bit. The premise of that is that we're storing all this nuclear waste on the moon. On one side of the moon, I guess the dark side of the moon, or a side of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it all ignites. And there's a moon base on the moon. I should have, clarified that. And the year is 1999. And, of course, this was made in the 70s, early 70s.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're on Moonbase Alpha, and then all of that nuclear waste somehow ignites, and it makes the moon be propelled out into space. And then every week they would have adventures as they were traveling from one star system to another. They would take their spaceships down and explore a planet maybe, or an old spaceship or something like that, and then come back before their moon kept going, because it was always going. It wouldn't stop. And, of course, forget the laws of physics that, okay, it would had to have been traveling faster than the speed of light to even get to another planetary system in someone's lifetime, but then it was still slow enough that they could, like, spend a week wherever they were going. It didn't really work out. That didn't matter when I was 12, though.
Yeah, I think Nancy Leader may have been one of the writers on that show.
It sounds like she was heavily influenced, or not her, but this other guy you're talking about, maybe being influenced by Space 1999.
Mr. Sitchin.
Nuakai, or whatever they were.
Could be.
Yeah.
Hard to say. Well, here's one of the things we need to, I guess, talk about. Is it possible that there is a planet that's on the outer reaches or even beyond our solar system that occasionally, because of maybe some kind of orbital or gravitational influences, every so often comes into our solar system and wreaks havoc on everything? Now, there was a proposal by one physicist that there was a planet that would come in every 25 million years or so, because that's extinction events where we're spaced about at that 25 million year mark. And he proposed this idea of a planet called Nemesis that would come in every 25 million years and just cause havoc with planet Earth as well as the other planets.
It's interesting. We could have mentioned that in last week's episode about extinction events, but now that you mention that, I know another thing that they say can coincide, or like another cycle, let's say, of the Earth, and that's its movement, our entire solar system's movement. So think of space, first of all, it's three-dimensional. We think of our solar system, and we see the pictures of it when we're kids, and we're taught of everything being this flat plane on a two-dimensional scale, but space is totally three-dimensional. I mean, there's stars above us, below us. It's a spherical bubble around us in 3 dimensions. Or I've seen where there's proposals of how our solar system rises above and below, or at least goes up and down every so many millions of years in the galactic plane, that we're maybe slightly above it, and then we drop slightly below it, and we sort of oscillate within galactic plane, and maybe there's an influence of something else outside of our solar system that comes in because of that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what this physicist, his name is Richard Moeller, and he postulated that there was a yet unfound companion to the sun, either a dim red dwarf or brown dwarf, laying in an elliptical orbit, a 26 million year orbit. And just like you said, out of sync, well, not out of sync, that's not the right way to say it, but in a different location in the galactic plane. If you want to look at it as up or down, you could do that.
It's the simplest way to look at it.
Right. And that it was on a 26 million year orbit around the sun, this unknown red dwarf or brown dwarf. And as it would come in, one of those planets, a planet Nemesis, would come in, intersect with our outer orbit, not enough for it to get captured by our sun, but enough to cause some havoc. And then, it would go away again.
Yeah, I've even heard it proposed maybe loosen up some comets and other things to sort of start bombarding the inner planets of our solar system because of the gravitational influence of some objects, extrasolar objects. Yeah, it's an interesting theory. Now, here's one of my favorite ideas, that this gravitational disturbance is not actually a planet at all. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
Gravitational... Oh, a black hole?
So some scientists are proposing that it's not a planet at all, but a black hole.
Yes, I've heard this.
Which would explain why we've never been able to see it. The black hole, by definition, will not allow light to escape. We've observed black holes. Well, I should say we haven't actually seen a black hole. The gravitational field is so strong around these objects that even light cannot escape them. But we can see the influence of the black hole, its gravitational forces around it. We can see the way other objects are moving around it, and we know that there's this gravitational force or field or object in the middle of all that. One problem with the theory, then, is that we know that black holes are collapsed stars, right? They're a giant star that its gravity was so great that as it ran out of fuel, instead of going supernova, which large stars generally do. Now, stars our size, like our sun, when it runs out of fuel, it'll start burning the helium. It runs out of hydrogen fuel. It'll start burning helium. It'll be called what's known as a red giant. Our yellow sun will expand, and then at some point, it'll get rid of all that excess mass, will blow off into space, and it'll become a white dwarf. But bigger suns will go into a supernova, and they'll explode. But then even larger ones will collapse upon themselves as they run out of fuel, and the gravitational force is so great that light can't escape. That's how we know a black hole exists. So the problem is how can this be a black hole? Because when you look at the mass, I mean, they're saying the mass can be anywhere from 5 to 10 times the Earth. That would be a very small black hole, right? It's probably not a star then, because it's out there at the edge of the solar system. There are some scientists that propose this could be what's known as a primordial black hole. It's maybe a black hole that has existed since the beginning of the universe. This is totally theoretical. There's never been any direct evidence of it. But it also, these primordial black holes, if they do exist as gravitational forces in our galaxy, could also explain dark matter. I mean, we have to have dark matter to make the math work, of why our galaxy won't fly apart. So that's where dark matter comes from. This could be the answer to dark matter, of course, is maybe there's these primordial black holes, which are these just gravitational singularities that could be scattered throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe.
I have a question for you. How do you get to a job where you just make up shit and call yourself a scientist to get paid?
Well, I think you have to go to school for a long time.
Got to go to school a long time before you make it up.
Got to have the credentials. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's the lady that had, what's her name, that had the chip installed by the aliens.
Nancy Leader, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that she has an education, so she can make, she's not making stuff up, okay?
Yeah, she's just communicating.
Transmissions from aliens.
Yeah, she's just communicating what they're telling her.
Yeah, she's just trying to pass it on to the human race. I mean, they picked her for a reason.
I graduated from high school.
Yeah, you graduated from college, man. Come on.
And this cat named Schrodinger is keeps eating his kibble, and he's gotten so big that he's causing gravitational pull on the outer edge of the planets.
That's the singularity's your cat.
Yeah, my Schrodinger's cat.
Anyway, I find that to be fascinating, and I love it from a science fiction point of view. According to Einstein's laws of relativity, nothing can go faster than the speed of light in this universe, right? And if you're not violating the laws of physics, but maybe this is a wormhole. You know, maybe this is a gateway to another solar system. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, it's better than the moon shooting through space and having a base on it with guys with boom mics hitting you in the head while you're trying to deliver your lines.
I still think it's fascinating.
Yeah, how about this? John Maltese and Daniel Whitmer of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, they proposed an object they call Tyche. The name means good sister of the Greek goddess
Good
Nemesis.
sister.
Yeah.
I have a good sister.
I have a great sister.
Yeah, well, mine's great too. Don't be trying to one up me when my sister's lit. My sister listens to the podcast. Okay,
My sister listens to the podcast. My sister doesn't do.
You're making that up. You're just saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe. Actually, we were just talking about it at dinner before podcasting. She was like, "I'm a little behind. I need to catch up."
All right. Yeah. My sister, she loves it.
I know she does your research.
Hey, sis. Yeah, she does some. Well, she hasn't for a while, but yeah, sometimes she sends me stories too.
So they're proposing this could be something like Nemesis. I don't know how it's different or where they're getting their ideas from, probably from the same place all these other knuckleheads are. Some have associated Nibiru, which is this 12th planet that Zacharias Sitchin had came up with a comet. A comet they're calling Comet Elion. It's a long-period comet discovered by a Russian astronomer, Leonid Elenin. Approached to Earth at a distance of 0.2338 AU, which is slightly closer than the planet Venus. Nevertheless, in the lead-up to its closest approach, claims spread on conspiracy websites concluded that it was on a collision course, that it was even as large as Jupiter or a brown dwarf for that matter, and the name of the discoverer was in fact code for ELE, or Extinction Level Event.
Ooh.
Anyway, nothing really happened to it, though they say that maybe some of the earthquakes in 2011 and 2010 were attributed to this comet. They, of course, provided no science, math, logic, reason, or anything that even approaches something beyond a second-grade education, but we need to watch out for comets because those things can cause havoc on us if we're not careful.
I did want to mention this because I ran across this article, and I've read a couple of articles on the black hole theory. Our old friend Avi Loeb from Harvard, believe it or not, is involved in trying to determine if this gravitational. And Avi Loeb is the one that proposed that. What's it called? Uma. What is that extrasolar object called? They came through a couple of years ago.
A Wambatamba.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know what it is.
Damn it. Jimmy.
Oh, I can't remember all of these weird Hawaiian names. Oh, your mama. I think that's what it's called. Mua. That's what it's called.
That's it. Mua.
Mua. Like saying a cow. It's like a cow saying a mua.
Oh my God. Anyway, Avi Loeb, who was one of the scientists from Harvard that proposed that, hey, maybe this object that zipped through the solar system was actually an alien probe of some type, right? And he backed it up with some data saying that it accelerated and everything. Well, he, along with an undergraduate student, Amir Sija, developed a method to seek out flares generated when a black hole encounters small objects, such as you may find in our Oort cloud at the edge of our solar system. And occasionally, these little objects would interact with the black holes lurking around it, and it would produce a visible light flare. They're saying that the Vera C. Rubin Observatory could detect it when it starts its 10-year legacy survey of space and time. It's not only what they're working to observe with this, but they are believing that And, of course, this article was written in 2020, so I guess maybe they're a couple of years into it now, but maybe in a few years we'll have an answer to what that is lurking on the edge of our solar system.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if it were like some super massive spaceship.
Be cool if it was, what was it in that game? Mass Effect? A Mass Effect relay?
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
To transfer ships to other parts of the galaxy, yeah. Of course, in that game, it was Charon. Around Pluto is what it was.
Yep.
Yeah. So what else do you have? I have some things we need to probably look out for. Nibiru, you discussed some of this earlier. With this large planetary object that could be coming toward us, there could be a cataclysm on the Earth. I mean, we've determined that. This information's been around for a long time. I mean, apparently the Earth was going to come to an end in 2003. I think you had covered that. It was from Nancy Leader on her Zeta Talk. Now, this is the lady with the alien chip in her head that allows her to communicate with aliens, the Zeta Reticuli. I guess it's the same aliens that abducted Betty Hill. Didn't she say they were from the Zeta Reticuli star system or something? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure.
So she was trying to warn mankind that this huge object was going to sweep through in May of 2003. But later she, it had to postpone that. It was going to cause this pole shift, as we discussed earlier. I guess where the North Pole and the South Pole kind of flip-flop or something like that.
Yeah.
You ever heard about the pole shift? The pole shift is supposed to happen. That's why, they find mastodons or mammoths still have, food in their mouths, like buttercups. You ever heard that story?
Yeah, I've heard that story.
Right.
Yeah.
That everything flash froze because the poles shifted.
Yeah, that's the theory.
So what do you think?
Well, first, I think that if you are a dog, I think you have a sixth sense about people. And I'm sure that her dog that she put down when she was adopting it was looking at her with incredible caution, going, I'm not sure about this lady. She got a wild look in her eye. I just wonder how many dogs she ate before she decided that maybe she needs to change up her diet a little bit. Maybe get a goldfish instead, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
So I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of this stuff. I mean, they're just planning on the outer solar system, probably. He's giving me the. Hold on a minute.
What about the end of the Mayan calendar? I mean, I'm surely you've heard about this. That when the Mayan calendar ends, that's going to be the end. That's when the giant planet Nibiru is going to be zooming in here, causing a cataclysm.
Oh yeah. So I mentioned that at the beginning. You remember?
Yeah.
I looked into that. The Mayan calendar ended in 2012. So it's.
How'd I miss that?
Yeah, I know. And it had that movie.
The world came to an end and there was apocalypse?
Well, Mayans have a different idea about the end. It's not like the end. It's like the end of one segment and the beginning of a new segment. So it's more of you make it to the end of the trail and then you turn around and come back the other way.
I think it's funny. My son, when he was young, he was pretty young in 2012, right? He was worried about it, right? Because all the talk about the Mayan calendar coming to an end and all this stuff. I don't know. I was just I remember waking him up and saying, hey, by the way, the world didn't end today. We're still here, son. Yeah. And I mean that this lady, she's just making money or whatever she does. I don't know. People do these things. They get attention. I don't know. But she's predicted the world's going to come to an end multiple times. And of course it hasn't. David Mead, who's a Christian numerologist, said the world was going to come to an end in 2017. He based his predictions on the geometry of the pyramids, numerological codes in the Bible. He also said that this planet was going to zip on in. His specific focus of his prediction revolved around the woman of the apocalypse, referring to some kind of unique configuration of the sun, the moon, and the planets in Virgo. He cited the solar eclipse of August 21st, 2017 as being a harbinger of doom. Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well,
And then he also claimed that NASA knew it was going to be happening. But, as the government often does, they cover these things up. They don't want panic, in the public, so they covered up that the world was ending in 2017. And somebody forgot to tell me about it because I don't remember the world ending. Did I miss that too?
Yeah, you missed all 3 world-ending events.
Oh, man. Dang it.
Yeah, and that numerology was spot on. I mean, you take the size of the pyramids, you multiply by 3.5, and then you add in the diameter of the crust of your toast, and you've got 2017.
This is some of the stuff that was going to happen. Nibiru would eclipse the sun. North Korea, China, and Russia would launch combined nuclear attack on the United States.
Not too late.
Then Earth would be devastated by a series of 9.8 magnitude earthquakes.
Wow.
Then the Earth's magnetic pole would shift 30 degrees. The United States would be split in half. Barack Obama, who was president then, would be elected president for an unconstitutional third term. Then there was a 7-year Great Tribulation would begin on October 15th with I think has biblical connotations, rapture, some things like that. Yeah. Didn't happen though.
Yeah. And Joss Whedon would get another TV series locked in for 3 years. Bring on the apocalypse, baby.
Right. Yeah. So, there's always going to be that. But despite this Planet X and the conspiracy theories that it's a harbinger of doom or it's going to spell the end of the solar system, there is something most likely out there on the edge of our solar system, be it an undiscovered planet or maybe this singularity, this black hole. We'll see.
Or a cat with an eating problem. It could be any one of these things.
Could be. Makes you wonder if it's one of those CIA cats.
That's where they eject them to the outer solar system.
Right. They launched a few into space, right?
Yeah, they'll be safe out there.
Search for aliens. Okay, well, Jimmy, you got anything else on Planet X?
No, I just want to say that from everything I've read, I do think there's probably, I think the astronomers are probably right, that there's a better than 50% chance that there's something out there a little larger than Neptune maybe, and that it's unlikely that it's going to come to the inner solar system, cause the Earth to stop spinning, the poles to shift, and for it to start spinning up again, split Earth in half, and allow Obama to take a third term.
Right.
I would put that in the low 20% range.
Yeah.
So
20%, right?
Well, I like to live dangerously.
All right, man. Well, I guess that is all we have tonight on Planet X. Once again, appreciate everyone tuning in this week, or this episode, I should say. Summer episode of Cosmic Sponge. Thank you so much for listening. This is Stephen Hawk signing out, and I'll see you next week.
And Jimmy...
Or sometime in the future.
And Jimmy Co. Keep your eyes to the skies, your feet on the ground, and check your calendar. We may be out next week or the week after that. Mothman's coming up.
Right. Oh, I meant to ask you.
Yeah.
These Trump documents that have been found, all these top secret documents. Think there's any UFO stuff?
I was thinking that. I was like, I wonder if there's any UFO stuff in there.
Yeah, think about it,
Yeah.
Going to go public with it, and then, there's the FBI, the feds.
That would be the coolest stuff ever.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, they said it was some of the most sensitive documents in our government, right? They were most top secret. I'm thinking most top secret, got to be MJ-12, man.
Yeah.
Got to be the Men in Black. Got to be the UFO, reverse engineering, Velcro that works.
The Velcro. They've reverse engineered Velcro. That's as far as we've gotten.
That's where it came from.
That's how those little great guys keep their feet on the ground. Velcro.
Right.
This spaceship's got nothing but Velcro on the floor.
Right, man. It's not artificial gravity. It's Velcro.
Some advanced species
they are. We'll see you next week.
All right, later, dude.
Or maybe.
Maybe That's all for this week's episode of Cosmic Sponge. Please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find the show. If you have any questions or have a story you'd like to share, you can contact us using our email account at firstcontact@cosmicsponge.com. If you'd like to support the show, consider becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/cosmicsponge, where you get access to exclusive content, including our Weird Wonders news and stories released every week. To explore everything Cosmic Sponge has to offer, including other ways to support the show, head on over to our website at www.cosmicsponge.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.